welcome to our summer series of India Now. My name is Avani Dias, and this is a look back on some of the issues that have dominated the news and society here in India. Every year, UNESCO commemorates World Press Freedom Day. North Korea now ranks last in the world for press freedoms, that's no surprise, but India isn't far behind, despite being the world's largest democracy.
Rus और Ukraine war.
The United States and China. The world's biggest democracy has a diverse media with thousands of outlets operating in multiple languages. And unlike Australia, freedom of speech is enshrined in India's constitution as a fundamental right. But the country is seeing an increase in attacks on journalists and increasing restrictions on media operations.
Journalism is in a really dangerous place in India. It's clear that this government doesn't like even the slightest bit of criticism and will not tolerate it.
इस देश को हिंदू राष्ट्र बनाने के लिए लड़ेंगे, जरूरत पड़ी तो हारेंगे। भारत माता की जय।
Earlier this year, the Modi government invoked emergency laws to ban a BBC documentary. The program criticised Prime Minister Narendra Modi's treatment of India's Muslim minority and his role during the Gujarat riots in 2002, when he was Chief Minister there.
Massive pelting as of now is going on.
We think this is a propaganda piece designed to push a particular discredited narrative.
Students at one Delhi university were detained ahead of a planned screening. At another, officials cut off electricity to the whole campus.
How shallow the reporting of the BBC is. India is a country which gives an opportunity to every organization as long as you do not have a hidden agenda.
Weeks later, BBC offices in Delhi and Mumbai were raided by Indian tax agents. The Press Club of India called the raids a clear-cut case of vendetta, and India's Editors Guild warned it wasn't just foreign journalists under attack, saying this was a trend of government agencies being used to intimidate or harass news organisations.
We did a few stories that were not very comfortable for the government. There was a team from the income tax that barged into my office and said, no one can go out, everyone stay. This is what they call a survey. They don't call it a raid. And they took my phone and laptop away. I couldn't make any calls. And it was clear the message that I was supposed to take from that.
Critics accuse the government of using the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act and the Public Safety Act to detain journalists without trial or charge for long periods.
In my lifetime, and I'm talking 95 onwards, I have never seen it so bad. I have never seen such pettiness, such hypersensitivity of governments wanting to come after you, wanting to shut you down. I have heard from my elder peers, many of them say, we lived through the emergency, and even then we weren't as scared as we are now.
Besides pressuring media outlets, authorities are resorting to a more extreme measure, shutting down the internet entirely. For the 5th year in a row, India had the most government-ordered internet shutdowns in the world. Authorities mostly defend them on the grounds of public safety or an emergency.
The working of Kashmir Times, like all other newspapers, was severely impacted. No internet was working, no mobile phones were working, and even the fixed landline services had been shut down. So that impeded the working of the news organization, particularly Kashmir Times, which has 2 editions, one in Srinagar, which was the center of the Muslim majority area where the internet ban and the communication ban was most stringent.
It's a matter of great concern that the world's largest democracy, India, finds itself falling on press freedom rankings year after year.
A 2021 report by Sweden's V Democracy Institute listed India as an electoral autocracy. And Reporters Without Borders now ranks India in the bottom 20 in the world for press freedoms, describing it as in crisis.
Indian democracy was never perfect, but nobody disagreed with the very spirit of democracy, which is that India is a socialist secular republic. The Narendra Modi government want to create a Hindu nation, which is in complete contradiction to the values that are the core of Indian constitution, and which is why that it is now being threatened.
Indian authorities are also accused of pressuring social media companies to suppress criticism. Facebook blocked the hashtag #ResignModi in India, hiding thousands of posts critical of the Prime Minister. And after Twitter unblocked accounts criticising India's government, the platform's employees were reportedly threatened with jail unless the accounts were reblocked.
Press freedom is one of the biggest indicators of the kind of democracy that any country enjoys. And when you see institutions being hollowed out, when you see laws being weaponized and amended in ways to crush democracy, to crush people's civil liberties and the freedom to speak, it's frightening, it's saddening.
Journalists here in India say the clampdown is just getting worse as the country draws closer to its federal election next year. But they're promising to keep reporting openly and transparently despite the risks.
I think there's always hope. I think there are enough news professionals who want to do good journalism, no matter how hard the fight may seem. I think eventually the curvature of the universe bends towards justice.
If I look at the downslide today, the near future is very, very dark. But history tells us this kind of authoritarian control cannot last forever. India is a country which has seen many different struggles and people and society have fought them back. And I'm sure some years from now, things will change.
In markets across India, people selling everything from fruit to electronics now usually have a QR code at their stall. India used to almost entirely rely on cash to power its economy, but it's going through a digital payment revolution.
So it's very simple. Whether it's Paytm, Google Pay, Phone Pay, anything, they can scan and they just pay.
There's no need to carry your money anymore. Your money is in the bank, so you can pay directly through that. I mean, it's very safe, I feel.
पूरी दुनिया में 40% हिस्सेदारी अकेले भारत की है.
Digital payments, where you use your phone to scan and pay for goods, are now everywhere in India. And the IMF says that India has one of the fastest growth rates of digital payments of any nation in the world. But just a few years ago, India's financial landscape looked completely different.
Most of the transactions used to happen in cash. So cash was king. Only a small subset of merchants had point of purchase machines. So if you landed in India today, you'd see the ubiquitous QR code. Even the chai wala on the street brandishing the QR codes.
So what were some of the factors that led to the massive uptake of digital payments?
My PNB UPI app has made sending and receiving money convenient and simple.
All of this has been driven through a slew of government-initiated programs, especially the Digital India program and the adoption of digital payments. But the idea of digital payments really took root post-demonetization.
Back in 2016, the government declared the 500 rupee and 1000 rupee banknotes invalid. Citizens could hand in their old banknotes in exchange for new ones. It was done to try and curb black money, corruption, and the circulation of counterfeit notes.
Reliance also came out with their Jio product, which gave Indians unfettered access to the internet via very cheap data.
Now India will fly. Jio is here.
And thanks to COVID, that gave the final push. People were less trustful of handling physical cash.
The key component in all of this is India's homegrown digital payment system, known as the Unified Payments Interface, or UPI, which was launched in 2016.
UPI chalega. UPI se doston ko paise.
And this system essentially allows real-time transfer of money between two individuals. So all that they need is a mobile phone number to send money from one person to another.
Many of the top digital payment platforms in India use the UPI, like Paytm, Google Pay and PhonePe. And the numbers on India's UPI system are staggering. In the month of March alone this year, there were more than 8 billion transactions recorded at a total value of over 250 billion Australian dollars.
ನಮ್ಮದು ಮಿಲ್ಕ್ ಪಾರ್ಲರ್ ಶಾಪು. ನಾವು ಅಂಗಡಿ ಮಾಡಿ 3 ವರ್ಷ ಆಯಿತು. 3 ವರ್ಷದಿಂದ ಡಿಜಿಟಲ್ ಪೇಮೆಂಟು ಬಗ್ಗೆನೇ ನಾವು ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸಾಕ್ಷನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾಯಿದ್ವಿ. ಇದರಲ್ಲಿ ಅಡ್ವಾಂಟೇಜ್ ಏನಂದರೆ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಸ್ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಮಾಡಿದ ತಕ್ಷಣ ನಮಗೊಂದು ಮೆಸೇಜ್ ಬರ್ತಾಯಿದೆ ಮತ್ತು ಒಂದು ಸೌಂಡ್ ಬಾಕ್ಸ್ ಕೊಟ್ಟವ್ರೆ. ನಮ್ಗೆ ಎಷ್ಟು ಹಾಕಿದೆ ಅಂತಲೂ ಅದರಲ್ಲೇ ಗೊತ್ತಾಗೋದು.
When it used to be cash business, earlier we had no clue. What was the income, what was the outcome? In cash business, it's like 1 or 2 rupees is a big headache.
But in some parts of the country, cash is still king.
ನಾವು ಸುಮಾರು 2 ವರ್ಷದಿಂದ ಇದೇ ವ್ಯಾಪಾರ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡಿದ್ದೀವಿ. ಸೊಪ್ಪು, ತರಕಾರಿ. ನಾವು ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಕಂಪೇರ್ ಮಾಡಿಕೊಂಡ್ರೆ ಈಗ ನಡೀತಾ ಇರೋ ಬಿಸ್ನೆಸ್ಸಲ್ಲಿ ಪ್ರತಿಯೊಂದು ಡಿಜಿಟಲ್ ಆಗಿರೋದ್ರಿಂದ ಕೆಲವೊಂದು ಟೈಮಲ್ಲಿ ಈ ಚೇಂಜ್ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಯೋಚನೆ ಮಾಡಿದಾಗ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ನಮಗೆ ಅನುಕೂಲ ಅನಿಸುತ್ತೆ. ಆದರೆ ಮಾರ್ಕೆಟಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ಹೋಗಿ ಅದನ್ನು ಮತ್ತೆ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸ್ಫರ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು ಅಂದಾಗ ರೈತರ ಹತ್ರ ನಾವು ತಗೊಂಬರ್ತೀವಿ. ರೈತರ ಹತ್ರ ಫೋನ್ಪೇ ಇರಲ್ಲ, ಗೂಗಲ್ ಪೇ ಇರಲ್ಲ. ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ಕ್ಯಾಶ್ ಕೊಡಬೇಕಾಗುತ್ತೆ. ಇಲ್ಲಿ 10 ರೂಪಾಯಿಗೆ 500 ರೂಪಾಯಿ ಕೊಡ್ತಾರೆ, ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ನಾವು ಚೇಂಜ್ ಕೊಡಬೇಕಾಗುತ್ತೆ. ಆ ಟೈಮಲ್ಲಿ ಎಲ್ಲರೂ ಬಂದು Paytm ಅಂತ ಮಾಡಿದಾಗ ನಮ್ಮಲ್ಲಿ ಚೇಂಜ್ ಇರೋದಿಲ್ಲ. ಆ ಚೇಂಜ್ ಇಲ್ಲ ಅನ್ನೋ ಕಾರಣಕ್ಕೆ ನಮಗೆ ಬಿಸ್ನೆಸ್ ಇರೋದಿಲ್ಲ.
A lack of access to smartphones, awareness of digital payment services, and the knowledge on how to use these services can widen the urban-rural divide.
When we take large-scale digital transformations, such as the Digital India program, for instance, there could potential digital divides that might emerge because not everyone has the capabilities and skills to benefit from these growth opportunities. So hopefully, going forward, everyone will benefit from India's growth story.
I mean, from the time digital payments have started, it's just pros, no cons at all.
ಅಫಿಷಿಯಲ್ಗೆ ಅನುಕೂಲ ಆಗಿರ್ಬೋದು, ಆದರೆ ನಮಗೇನಾಗ್ತದೆ, ಇಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ನಂಬ್ಕೊಂಡಿರೋದೇ ಚಿಲ್ಲರೆ ಕಾಸಲ್ಲಿ. ಇದನ್ನು ನಾವು ಆನ್ಲೈನ್ಗೆ ತೊಗೊಂಡೋಗ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಎಲ್ಲ ಬ್ಯಾಂಕಿಗೆ ಹೋಯ್ತು ಅಂದರೆ ಆ ಚಿಲ್ಲರೆ ಕಾಸು ನಮ್ಮ ಕೈಗೆ ಸಿಗೋದಿಲ್ಲ. ಕಷ್ಟ ಅಂತ ಅನಿಸುತ್ತೆ.
A big part of India's digital revolution is its biometrics ID system known as Adhar. But some critics say it's an opaque system that now holds the data of more than 1 billion people.
Think about this for a second. If Australian authorities asked for your fingerprints and your iris scans to keep forever, would you give them up?
A revolutionary change that gave a digital identity to each and every person without any discrimination of caste, creed, class, or of being rich or poor.
This is the reality for most people living in India at the moment. And I know because I handed mine over when I lived there too.
This is none other than the world's largest digital identity revolution. Adhar. My Adhar. My identity.
And I'm not the only one. 99% of Indians, according to the department that governs this biometric system, have signed up. That's a whopping 1.3 billion people.
It means my most personal details went into this immense Adhar database. Now, the Indian government says it's to enable more people, especially the poor, to access government and financial services like food rations or bank accounts.
Whereas earlier, one needed a number of cards for different tasks. Today, all identity-related work can be done with Adhar.
But technology and privacy researchers say this allows surveillance at a scale that's not been seen before in a democracy.
It surprises me immensely how casually this project is being just spread across all kinds of domains, all manner of databases being made, everything being linked up using the UID number.
Usha Ramanathan is a lawyer and human rights activist who's been campaigning against Adhar.
It surprises me because, it's only very recently that we had a newspaper recognizing that a breach of this kind of data is a national security threat. Many people can get at it and you won't even know.
Getting my Adhar card was pretty simple. I just went to one of the government centres, scanned each of my fingers, did an iris scan, and then went on my way. But I pretty much felt like I had to, because it wasn't really clear what the consequences would be if I didn't. Would I be able to use my bank account? Would I be able to use my phone? There was just a lot of uncertainty.
apart from the public distribution system and scholarships and things, they also said that you can't get married, you can't get a caste certificate, you can't get a domicile certificate, and went on for a while. Then the court stepped in and said that, you can't compel people, you can't deny people any service because they are not enrolled. So they went ahead nevertheless and kept saying that they will deny. And what is very interesting in this is how all the way to the bottom, from the top, the system absorbed this. And so anywhere you went, they would say, no, you have to give your UID number or else we can't give you your service. So it was a lot of bullying, scaring people, fear-mongering, coercion.
Part of the government's reason for bringing in the Adhar system has been to eliminate fraud, like people duplicating identities to collect double the services they're owed, or the issue of leakage, where entitlements are diverted by corrupt bureaucrats.
Now the centre has issued a warning against sharing the photocopy of your Adhar card. The information can be misused by organizations.
And while the government has said the biometric databases are foolproof, there's been evidence of fraud continuing. But they won't provide data on how much fraud or human error plagues the system. Prasanna S. is an advocate in India's Supreme Court. He advises petitioners in Adhar cases.
There have been no studies, or if there are studies, it is there have been no reports, and even if there are reports and they are not in the public domain, there is now no data about the Adhar system itself. Even as the state becomes more and more data hungry, where the citizens are now forced to give their part with their personal data for any purpose under the sun. You see that there is a movement towards the state becoming less and less transparent.
The question becomes, what is all this data, collected like a dragnet and cross-referenced with other data, going to ultimately be used for?
In Telangana, they started linking the UID number with the voter ID number. And in that process, they dropped a large number of people saying these are all, the voter IDs were dropped saying these are duplicates, these are fakes, these are ghosts. And it was very close to the elections. There wasn't enough time for people to go and get, redress on that. And in Telangana, the kind of model that they are coming up with, it's become like a police state where you're walking on the street and they can just take a picture and then send it across to see whether you're on any suspicious database. So it's not the stuff of which freedom is made.
Now, I don't live in India anymore, so the government doesn't need to keep my personal data. But once you're in the system, there's no getting back out.
So the UID is one system which is a really, really remarkable system which says you can opt in. In fact, you're not opting in, you get in. And you cannot opt out. There is no opt-out mechanism.
Indian women dominate beauty pageants internationally, but across some parts of the country, there's still discrimination and prejudice towards people with a darker complexion. So now the skin whitening industry is worth billions of dollars.
One tone fairer skin in one wash. Dirt and pollution are hiding your fairness every minute, every second. Bright skin, fast. Bright fast. Bright fast.
Of course, I have been discriminated because of my skin shade right from my childhood, I believe. Invariably, the first statement would be, you're not as fair as your mother. My mom is on the fairer side. So that used to be the comment which I used to always receive.
I need to come white and I need to do this.
You need to come white? Really? You don't like this? This is pretty.
If you have dark skin, the world is bent on trying to make you at least 2 shades lighter.
Colorism, very simply defined, is light skin preference or bias for light skin or prejudice against dark-skinned people. This is a term that is commonly attributed to African-American author Alice Walker. But of course, colorism has been observed in societies around the world.
The problem is so deep-rooted in our society that we don't even think it's a problem. It's not a recognized evil.
my own family, yes, there are people who are fair, who are dark. You have cousins and siblings, and amongst yourselves, and you're always constantly being compared. The other person is fair, even between two kids. For example, like parents who have two kids, I've seen them comparing their own kids as to one is fair and the other is dark. Yes, as a teenager, I have used fairness products, tried to look a few shades lighter, and it doesn't work. It's a sham. Men also face comments about their skin color, but not as much as women do. If you take the matrimonial sites in India, you always see a girl who is desirable is fair, very fair, whereas a man is always tall, dark, and handsome.
Well, there are multiple influences that we have to acknowledge. I think British and European colonialism, the light skin preferences that the Europeans brought is fairly well known and understood. Prior to that, the Mughals who ruled India for 800 years, they were a light-skinned people from what we know today as per Iran and Central Asia. So, they were the ruling elite. In contemporary India, there's a very strong belief that if you are light-skinned, then you must be from the dominant caste, and if you are dark-skinned, then you must be from, a so-called lower oppressed caste. This includes indigenous or Adivasi people as well.
Forget Snow White, say hello to Chocolate Brown, I'll write my own fairy tale.
I hope at least my daughter will not have to go through this. And there are a few heroines who have actually stopped endorsing fairness products.
We are a diverse nation with diverse languages and ethnicities. I think we should look forward and see why are we still entertaining this toxic belief.
India is believed to be home to the largest LGBTQI community in the world. But when it comes to marriage, things are still pretty conservative. There are some people in the community that are now fighting for more representation, like this activist who's fighting for transgender rights.
Hijras is the oldest ethnic transgender group. Culturally, religiously, a complete different culture they follow. They fall under the big umbrella of transgenders. In Pakistan, they are known as Sarai Khwajas. India, they are known as Hijras, Skinners, many different names. In Bangladesh, they are known as Hijras. And in Tarai region of Nepal, they are known as Mithis. It's one of the oldest group of trans women, basically. I believe children should be taught to respect every gender. Because there are atrocities against women, there are atrocities against trans women, trans man in the society because of the patriarchy in which we are. Before 2014, we didn't have any legal right as an Indian. We were not accepted by the government as equal to any man and woman. So there was a lot of discrimination, stigma. People were pushed out of the house. People were beaten by father, brothers, and by family members for being trans. Traditional work of the Hijras are basically blessing when a child is born, blessing when there is a marriage happening. Then people are into begging on the streets. People are also into sex work. There was no way that people could talk about jobs, people could talk about dignified livelihood, people could talk about entrepreneurship. I was so feminine as a child, and every people would bully me in the corridors of the school. I was scared to go to the bathroom. I was sexually abused at a very young age. My parents accepted me. My parents stood strong. My siblings stood strong. They gave me moral support. And today, whatever I am, I'm thanks to my parents, you know. I'm proud to be a trans woman. I'm proud to live every day to the fullest.
India's Supreme Court ruled in favour of giving rights to the transgender community and created a third gender.
The biggest achievement was in 2014 when we had the verdict. We won the case. When it becomes legal somewhere, you know, things change. There is lots more to change, and there is a lot of way to go. But this whole system and perspective looking towards transgender people has changed per se in the country. My organization have been doing targeted intervention for HIV/AIDS program. We are doing entrepreneurship. We have employed 450 transgender people across different genres of work. We train them and we employ them. I want to see in the coming years that transgenders don't face stigma and discrimination, don't face ostracization by the families. It's an ongoing process of advocacy. It's an ongoing process to bring down the stigma and discrimination. And still there is a lot more to be done. And our organization is still working on it.